Good morning. Good morning to you, and welcome to the SitRep for today, the 17th of September, 2022. September. That sounded very Musafa. Everything the light touches. Enough of that tomfoolery. What's going on? How are you all? I hope you're all well. I hope you're all happy wherever you are in the world, or at least content. Wasn't going to do a sit rep today because I am going hunting. Gonna go out for a bow hunt for some goats this morning, feral goats, see what we get. But I thought, you know what? I'll do one. Why? Because there was like a whole heap of messages that I got from people. Really, really nice, cool messages from people, and I really appreciate that. And I thought, you know what? I'll bang in the sit rep and go hunting. Why not do both? Why not do both? So here we are. I feel like I need some like theme music at the start of this now. I might work on that. Get a little theme music. Sit rep. All right, no, this is serious stuff. Come on, focus, guys. What's happening in the world? So for those who haven't joined me before, the one or two of you that sometimes pop in here, let me just adjust some cameras. Try and get that axe fully in the frame. For those who haven't joined me before, this is where I go through news stories that I find interesting from the perspective of prepping, things that can sort of remind us and show us like how volatile our world can be, so that we should be better prepared for it, and trends that we're seeing in the world that we should start to look at and go, okay, maybe I need to start focusing on this. So that's what we do. All right, we're going to skip over Australasia, Southeast Asia, and East Asia today and jump straight into Central Asia to have another little snapshot of the flooding that's going on there. Flooding seems to be a theme around the world right now. For those of you on YouTube, this one is titled Floods, Floods, Floods. Or listening to this on the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, listening to my voice in your ear hole. That's what a lot of what's happening in the world today. So the Pakistan floods obviously dominating a lot of the news cycles. What's going on there? They're up around 1,500 people have died in those floods now. They're quite catastrophic, the flooding that's happening there, and continuing to happening. So continuing to happening? No, continuing to happen. The flooding is still occurring there. It doesn't just disappear like that. And the aftermath of flooding, and this is something I like to tell people as well who haven't necessarily been around flooding before, and especially in developing countries or countries less developed than Australia. What often happens is there is a flow-on effect, pardon the pun, from floods, where we see an increase in waterborne diseases, especially. That's probably the primary thing. We see an increase in horrific human behavior, being theft, crime, assault, sexual assault, child theft, kidnapping, and human trafficking. And we see an increase in mosquito-borne diseases as well. As there's more water lying around and that becomes stagnant, we see an increase in mosquitoes usually. So we also see malaria or dengue fever and things like that increase. So, it's not just people dying in the flood. Yet that's what we're seeing here. But, wait for the flow-on effect. On top of this, Pakistan has been reporting that their food supply chain has been affected greatly, as in a lot of their farming country has been destroyed or wiped out. Their crops have been destroyed or wiped out because of these floods. Peter Rouse, good morning to you on the YouTubes. Is saying maybe too much cloud seeding, perhaps, yeah. And a lot of these places are also built in flood-prone areas, and that's what we've seen with the expansion of the human numbers. We've had to push out into other areas, and so we are pushing into places that would be flood-prone areas. We've also pushed into areas that are actual swamps and tried to terraform it. And good old Mother Nature says, nice one, humans. Wrong. Here's some water. Doesn't quite work that way. So we get flooded. And then we go, oh, look at the human tragedy. And it's like, well, there were no humans here 25, 50 years ago. That's what you get. Also, northern India is getting heavy rains and floods. They've got 12 reported dead in torrential rains that are happening in northern India. No surprise there, northern India, Pakistan area being hit quite hard. Let's go a little bit further north now, and fighting has broke out between two countries, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, which is just north of Afghanistan. So some of the stands here are kicking off in this area. These are former Soviet Union countries. A lot of people don't really know or care about what's happening up in this part of the world. But there's another, they're kind of generally termed the stands. And you've got a number of countries up here that are autonomous countries that are going their own way post the fall of the Soviet Union. So I find it interesting what's happening in this part of the world. Certain of these countries have been in the news more recently for political turmoil within their own countries. And if you're paying enough attention, watching how the Russian Federation has been, some might say, helping, some might say interfering in these countries. So here's the latest thing that's happened. Fighting has actually broken out between two of these countries, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. What's actually going on there? Hard to tell. But definitely what we're seeing is fighting at points along the border, and it has been reported also happening into civilian areas as well. So watch that space. Yet another. That's my dog going crazy. Going crazy as if someone's rocked up here. So if someone has rocked up here, I might have to cut this short today. We'll just see how it's going. But yet another area that is becoming another little flashpoint of violence and conflict. So a lot of video footage coming out of these areas as well of this. Again, the Armenia Azerbaijan conflict still continuing. We're seeing now what appears to be happening, more of what's happening everywhere else, proxy war. US doesn't want to step into a war by itself, so it's not creating proxy wars, but these wars are being fought as proxy of the US. The way I kind of see this, the US empire, as it were, a giant whale that has washed up on shore, and all the other actors are coming in to take bites of it now, and they're getting very sort of more proactive in that biting. So the US is involving itself in a number of wars, which, if we look at the cycle of empires, is quite common in a certain part called the collapse of the empire. But this is yet another one. So we're seeing this Armenia. I'm not saying that US is necessarily involved in here. What I'm saying is Russia is definitely involved, and a number of other Western countries are being involved, but US definitely does appear to be taking a more forward stance into this particular conflict. So much so that apparently Nancy Pelosi is heading there. We're all saved now. Nancy Pelosi's going there. Good God. Why? Okay. Let's jump over into Africa now. This one jumped out at me. The Ethiopian Central Bank has just put restrictions on the amount of cash travelers can hold and sets foreign currency conditions. So when we start to see stuff like this, central banks creating any sort of cap, really. I mean, central banks do this, right? They do this sort of stuff. They're trying to manipulate things and get things to sit where they want them. What we're seeing, though, is that central banks are extending that power more and more and becoming more and more obvious with it. Usually they're like, oh, we're just going to move interest rates, or we're just going to set these sort of conditions, or we're going to sort of set this sort of environment where people can do whatever. No, when they're starting to go in and going like, whoa, you people can only have this amount of cash. You people can only have this amount of cash. What we start to see is situations like Lebanon, what's happening in Lebanon, where people have been capped for a number of years now on how much cash they can actually pull out of the bank. And we're starting to see that in a number of countries around the world. But what is this indicative of? What is this showing us? This is showing us central bank that is losing control. when powers like this start to feel that their grip is loosening, that they're like losing control, they grip down harder. And that's exactly what we're seeing here in Ethiopia. And that's exactly what we're going to see in a number of other countries to come. This is not going to slow down. This is going to get worse. We're going to see governments, we're going to see central banks doubling down on their efforts to lock down on you. And that means more manipulation on the money, more control on the money, more printing of the money, more taxing of individuals as well, and more forcing you to do whatever they want you to do. Just catching up a few comments here. Peter Rouse says, helping like the US has been doing around the world for the past 100 years. Yes, that's what they have been doing. Sometimes actually for pretty good effect, I think anyway, in my opinion, but sometimes not. Funny Frog Gaming says, first time I've ever caught a SitRep live. Oh, well, welcome. Welcome to the madness. I usually see them the next morning as I'm from the US and I'm frequently working afternoons and evenings. Well, welcome to you. Thank you very much for joining from the US. I'm always stunned that people want to listen to some weird Aussie over the other side of the world giving his 2 cents about what's happening. But I'm really happy to have people from around the world. And I really love the comments that everyone puts in. We get people from the US, people from the UK, people from Scandinavia, people all over the world, people from New Zealand, although I kind of consider you one of us, Peter, looking at you. Always happy to get that perspective because I'm not in the countries, and as much as it burns me at the moment, I can't get into your country right now. I can't go to the US for reasons. But yeah, I always love to hear from whatever's going on there and what your perspective is as well. Watch out if they send Victoria there, says Peter Rouse, the woman that held up the bank to get her own money out. Right. Yeah, that was in Lebanon. A woman held up a bank just to get her own money out. That's how insane Lebanon has got now. I mean, not that is insane. I'm saying like that is understandable to me. If I went to the bank and they said, no, you can't access your money, and I needed to pay for things, and I think this particular case was needed to pay for medical, like some surgery that her father needed off memory, this story was, she ended up holding up the bank saying, you will give me this money. And then the standoff ended when they said, yep, we'll give you the money so that your father can have that medical intervention that you need to pay for, that surgery. And then they arrested her and didn't give her the money. So, and she's the bad guy, right? Just remember that. She's the bad guy in that story. Yeah. Funny Frog Gaming says, that reminds me to start having cash on hand instead of relying on credit card or any sort of electronic means, really, all the time. I couldn't agree with that more. That we really need to have some sort of cash on hand. Electronic systems can go down and banking systems can be shut down on a whim. So this is one of these prepping things, like have a bit of cash on hand. I try to have X amount of cash on me, or in my wallet or in my house, that if an emergency does happen, that I can kind of bang, do that. Also have try and have that cash in my car too. If I'm somewhere and it's like an emergency happens, I can't buy fuel to get home, bang, you got cash. That's something you really want to think about. Spread a little bit of cash out, have a bit of cash on hand. It still does work, oddly enough. So do that. I'm certainly not advocating you pull all your cash out, though. What do we got here? Yes, Oz troops heading to Ukraine. I haven't heard about that. Have not heard about that. Only pay cash for firearms. Yeah, totally. Especially as we've seen that credit card companies have started questioning people about their purchases over in the US. It's terrifying. I'm like, that's my money. Like, I can spend it on whatever I want. Are you questioning people about buying, I don't know, McDonald's? You should be. You should be questioning people about their food choices, maybe. Hey, are you eating healthy? That would be the kind of thing where maybe that would be legitimate. Are you killing yourself and putting more of a burden on our fragile health system? Can you stop that? we're going to charge you more interest on that purchase. Not, are you buying guns? Because, like me, you might want to go hunting. Anyway, let's jump over to Europe now. Sweden's just had an election. Looks like they're shifted over to the right now. They're going from left to right. From the reports that I'm seeing. So yeah, that's not surprising. I mean, what we're seeing, not necessarily right. Authoritarian governments usually start to come into favor when times are uncertain. It's what I call "help me, daddy" syndrome. I just named that. That was off the top of my head. But when people are in fear, when people are uncertain, you're more your lemming NPC type people. They go, "Tell me what to do. Somebody help me. Quick, you seem powerful and strong. Tell us what to do." So the more authoritarian governments start to come in, and then that's a self-licking ice cream. That's a self-replicating system where they go, the government goes, "Oh, actually, you like me telling you what to do?" And they're like, "Yes, yes." And so they tell you what to do more. And people go, "That's better. That's better. Tell me more what to do." And they crush down quicker. But what happens is bits get squirted out the side. And those bits that get squirted out the side and get away, that's you and me. We're the bits that don't want to be crushed under the fist, where everyone else goes like, the crushing, yes, I'm being crushed, but at least I'm being held. That's generally what we see. I'm not saying that's happening in Sweden right now. I'm just saying, like, watch for this trend as the authoritarian governments. But what they're seeing there is the right-wing governments, and I will put it juxtapose this with this story here. Apparently, this report came out. 4 in 5 refugees living in Sweden have vacationed in the country they fled from. So they're like, help, help. I'm being killed in my home country. I need help. I am a refugee. And Sweden, with open arms, their policy has been like, yeah, come on in, everyone, come on in. So those people came into the society in Sweden, and then were like, hey, I'm just going to go for a holiday back to that horrible place that I just escaped. I'll be back soon. It's like, weren't you like running from that place? Didn't you have to flee from there for your life? And now you're just going to go for a holiday back there? Something doesn't add up here. So I guess Swedish people are getting a bit fed up with this. Peter Rouse says credit card tracking of all part of ESG, environmental, social, and corporate governance. Funny Frog Gaming says, obviously tracking purchases isn't great, but the state government already knows I have guns because I have my concealed carry permit. Same here in Australia. Like, it doesn't matter who's tracking my weapons, because I have to very, very clearly put it to my state government. I have weapons. Here is where they are. And at any point, they can rock up and say, where are they? Show them to me. That's the price I have to pay in Australia for owning a firearm. So while I disagree with it in principle, it's not that bad for me. Yeah, same. Those vacations could be visiting family or trying to help old communities, correct. This story doesn't dig into that a lot, but it does say that 81% of those people who have arrived in Sweden from non-European countries have been heading back, and what they're doing there is somewhat unknown. They definitely don't want to return back to their home, and it is within the realm of possibility for people just to be like, hey, I just want to go back and visit. Like, if I left Australia because it was so shit here, I would probably at some stage go, hey, I want to just check in and go see what's going on there. But also on the other side of that, if you're using that as a legitimate excuse to move into another country, then all right, some sort of oversight needs to be brought in here. What's actually going on, especially when we think about refugee systems that we have in a lot of our countries, and especially within Sweden. I'm pretty sure they have this as well, where what's actually being set up for them for them to live there. And I know this happens within Australia. Is this that one of my friends, for example, great dude from Afghanistan, helped us out a lot. Helped out Australia and Australian government a lot in Afghanistan. We organized a visa, came out to Australia, and I remember speaking to him. He said, "Oh man, it's good here, but like all I want to do is work. I want to work hard and I want to do things, and the government actually won't let me. There's a refugee system where I have to be supported by the government, and they have to pay me this money, and they have to do this, and I don't really want that. He was very kind of go getter kind of guy. He goes, I just want to get on with my life and start working." But that support that it's actually coming there from the government. So I don't think we should not have refugees. I just want to put that out there. I think refugees are a good idea, and I think people should be able to move away from a country where their lives are threatened, where they feel threatened. But we also need to be wary of what's going on when people want to just move wholesale from country to country. So there is a balance here. There's a left and right of arc. And it's somewhere in the middle where we should be aiming for. All right. What else is happening in Europe? Hungary is not a full democracy anymore, apparently. Large majority in the European Parliament has adopted the report that declares the country as a hybrid regime electoral autocracy, which I think is interesting. I've often said this, that this word democracy that we bandy around a lot. Technically speaking, by definition, are we a democracy? A democracy means that everything is voted on by the people in that particular nation or space or group or whatever it is. What we do is all the people get together and we vote in a representative. But then in Australia, at least, for 4 years, that representative can go and do whatever they want. And actually, they do that quite often. There are good ones that do listen to the people. There are other ones that go like, yes, I'm in again, and I'm going to do whatever my party tells me what to do. So that there is actually a little bit, we're kind of getting away from democracy now. That's a democratically elected autocracy. That's a democratically elected aristocracy, really, because in some occasions we've seen these people acting with, pretty much impunity, building their own jobs, doing their own thing, padding their own nests, as it were. So it's interesting now that this definition comes out, and we're seeing this in Hungary. But again, I want to point out that quite often from this part of the world, we're looking into the European Union as a whole, and we're seeing this solid state, and it's just not like that. That's not what I'm actually seeing. That's not how it plays out, and it's fractious. Hungary, again, another one that's been a bit on the outside. Slovakia at the moment being a bit on the outside. Poland versus Germany, being a bit fractious there, and a number of other, Italy, like going against the trend and saying like, hey, no, we can't keep these sanctions up. All these things happening within the European Union. It is a melting pot and a mobile, moving sort of beast. Always interesting to watch, though. Putin, Xi Jinping, and a number of other BRICS sort of alliance leaders have been meeting over the last couple of days. That's interesting. Putin, Xi, and Mongolia's president have discussed construction of oil and gas pipelines. So firming up that Russia-China link there as far as resources go. Just trying to catch up with some of the chats here. They're only allowed to know the firearms covered by your concealed licenses. They can't track in the New Zealand the same way, says Peter Rouse. S. Wood says economic refugees. That's what we're going to see, and Peter Rouse agrees that may be most of the planet soon. So watch that space. Nuclear power is quietly making a big comeback around the world. Belgium has looking into extending, their nuclear power. France has proposed building up to 14 new plants. It's pretty big. Japan, obviously, I've talked about that. They're looking at doing that. UK, Poland, Czech Republic, all starting to bandy around plans to build new plants. So I've talked about this before. Is nuclear the best thing in the world? No, I don't think it is the best thing in the world. If we want to avoid some sort of collapse based around energy crises, then nuclear may be one of the few options that we have to realistically do it. Some other technology might pop up. I don't know. I just don't think that green technologies that we have at the moment are going to be able to cover the gap that we have. They're not going to be able to do it. By the way, I was talking about this show that I watched, Last Light. Maybe I should do a review on it. I ended up watching the end of the series. It's only a 5-part series. Terrible ending. Sorry, if you haven't seen it yet, I just hated the ending. Well, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but when you see it, I was just like, something that pissed me off, right? Like, we got a whole heap of agendas and things that are get pushed into the mainstream media and are taking over our entertainment and things like that. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I actually like storytelling. All right. I like when people craft a really good story and it captivates you and it makes you think about something. That's what I care about. I hate rubbish writing. And I just felt like, I don't know, they phoned the ending of that one in. I was like, what? You just took something like an arc of a story which was going somewhere like really cool. And then just like, nah, let's just end it there. Totally confusing. I was very just disappointed by that. Anyway, this is interesting. Denmark bans COVID vaccines for under 50s, but doesn't really properly explain why. Interesting. Okay, let's see what starts happening there. Germany, this story says Germany could nationalize its biggest gas importer. I did see a story that said they are going to do it, that they're looking at nationalizing a lot of their gas at the moment. Obviously, big problem for Germany. So they're like, no, government's going to have to take this over. You can't look after this yourself, you stupid capitalists. We're going to take it over because we're better at it. Government's always better at things. Everyone knows this. This is known. Government is always better at things, including knowing your own life, right? You don't know how to run your own life. You wouldn't even know what to eat in the morning unless the government told you. Food pyramid, that's what you eat. Idiots. Of course, the government knows what they're doing. For those who can't tell, that's sarcasm. Government never does anything better than anyone else. Always worse. So government taking over things? No, never a good idea. Peter Rouse, have I watched Jericho? No, I have not watched Jericho. Do you recommend it? Should I watch it? Germany calls for a refugee summit as new migrant wave strains cities and states. I am totally like, I hate being one of those, oh, I told you so type people, but I have been talking about this migrant problem for a while. Not problem. Migrants aren't a problem. I've been talking about how there will be mass migrations coming. And out of Africa will probably be the first major push, unless we see a huge conflict pick up somewhere, like bigger than we've already seen conflict pick up, maybe Middle East or something like that. But Africa, as people start starving to death in the next 12 to 24 months, we are going to see, and I don't know what the numbers are, somewhere between tens of thousands to hundreds of millions of people starve to death in the next 12 to 24 months. I don't know how we would get around it. Like, the numbers just don't stack up with the food that's being produced at the moment, with the food that's getting moved around at the moment, and how many humans we have and the ability to produce more. The numbers don't stack up. And I'm sorry if that terrifies you, but that's what we're looking at. Again, not here in Australia, but it's Africa that's going to get hit with this. So this, people don't just sit around and die and let their family die. They're going to pick up and move. And where are they most likely going to move? North into Europe. Everywhere else as well, but Europe's going to cop a mass migration wave. So Germany's already saying, hey, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about this. It's going to be huge. Civil unrest sort of stuff. Dozens of students denounce university police in Greece. This is old story, but this civil unrest has been happening for a long time, a while now in Greece. Basically, like, they've been putting university police into Greece. It's a whole complicated thing, but regardless, I'm not really going to go into it today. I've talked about it before. They're up in arms about it. The students are up in arms about it. The important part here is rioting, civil unrest is on the increase, and it's not going to slow down. This is yet another example of it. More civil unrest is what we're going to see in more areas, more places around the world. More cities are going to cop it, and we're not excluded from that. We're not excluded from that here in Australia. We're not excluded from that here in New Zealand. Our part of the world is not in any way, shape, or form excluded from it. Generally, we have lower civil unrest here, but it will start happening. It's something you need to start thinking about, especially if you live in cities. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm just going to keep telling you. Catastrophic floods again kill 7 in Italy. Italy also copying the floods. France to raise bank capital buffer to 1% in December. This is interesting, right? France is looking at doubling in December, doubling the amount of capital reserves that the banks have to keep on hand. So quick snapshot of the money system. Exchange, barter. Okay, it doesn't quite work because not all things created equal and time spent creating things. So let's create a means of transaction, a representation of energy expended. And we'll use a precious metal, cool, gold, silver, whatever. Hey, there's not enough gold and silver in the world for everyone. Let's say that we've got gold and silver locked away, and then the bank will write you a note and give you that, and you can hand that to someone saying that you're good for this amount of money. That's a banknote. Cool. All right. So we have to have all that gold and silver on hand here, but you guys can just exchange the notes. All right. We don't that's limited as well. So let's say 70%. We'll just have 70% of the gold and silver. Okay, that's not enough. Let's have 30%. You know what? Fuck gold and silver. Get rid of it. We'll just exchange these things, and you can just take our word as government, because the government never lies. You just take our word that it's worth something. Oh shit, we need more. Let's print more. No, it's all good. It's all still worth the same, but there's more of it out there now. Oh, okay, yep, still worth the same amount. But we've got other stuff. We've got capital behind it. There's something linking there. There's some sort of solid resource. Well, that's been dwindled down. And that's been dwindled down all the way to 0.5%. So a bank only has to hold 0.5% of the amount of money that it has in actual real shit. This is why this money thing is imaginary in reality. It's not like this stuff here, silver, which has an actual value and an actual purpose in the world. Money is just made up. It's a story. It's a lie. It's something that we all agreed on and went, yep, okay, so let's exchange that. Anyway, France has said that we're going to double the amount of shit that we hold to back that money from 0.5% to 1%. If you're hearing this for the first time and you're like, what? Yeah, you should be like, what? That's insane that it's so low. But anyway, that's what it is. But the interesting thing for me is that they are doubling it. They're saying, actually, no, we need something to back this money. The writing is on the wall right now, and everybody knows it, and everybody is kind of freaking out and trying to do something about it. Real solid commodities are things that are actual value, that are actual wealth. Money is not real wealth. So these sorts of things I look at and I'm like, bam, here's another one of those red flashing lights to me that say, system collapse. We're on the way down. This roller coaster is like, we're about to drop. I'm not saying like tomorrow the fucking stock market's going to collapse and economic collapse everywhere and it's crazy. It will take a number of forms, and I don't know. And it could be 2 months that it's going to take. It could be 20 years that it's going to take before. But I think the writing now is totally on the wall to everyone, and you should all see this. That the money system, the fiat money system, fiat is synonymous with fake. The fake money system we have is done. See you laters. If everyone realized our paper money was worthless, they would riot in the streets. Yes. Not would. You can actually see this happening. The Weimar Republic, Germany, 1930s, Zimbabwe, late 1990s, 2000, Venezuela, 2015-ish, Lebanon, 2019-ish. You can see examples of it happening when a country understands that the money that it has is fucking worthless and they feel very, very ripped off about that. Well, that might start happening on a vast scale very, very soon. And you're very correct here. Funny Frog Gaming says it's almost a good thing that people don't know or care. I can't agree with you more. If everyone cottoned onto this at the same time, utter chaos. But I mean, there would be wholesale death is what it would turn out to be. Good morning to you, Chris Fleming. Welcome. Thank you for joining today. All right, what else is happening? Putin says that 25% of Russian gas supply to Turkey will be paid in rubles. Again, this meeting that's going on, a lot of handshaking, a lot of fist bumping. He's met with Indian Prime Minister, met with Turkey PM, and started doing these sort of deals that are going on. So we're seeing the BRICS alliance now. For those who don't know, this is over 50% of the human beings in the world are involved in the BRICS alliance. So this isn't just like, oh, the axis of evil. This is now the majority. Just get that around your head. Or get your head around that, maybe. This is a big deal. And they're shifting. They're doing these deals and they're saying, US petrodollar, it's done. Let's jump into Spice Gal 27. What's the panic about 24th of September? I don't know. All my tinfoil hat mates are up in the air about it. 24th of September. I guess we'll wait till 24th of September and find out. Maybe nothing. Maybe nothing. But here's what I'll say about that. How old was I? Maybe 18 when Y2K was around. I was post-military career when 2012 hit. What other catastrophic apocalyptic events? Obviously 2008 crash, September 11, 2001, saw that. I've seen a number of these things where people are like, this date, this is where it's about to happen. And things happen, things don't happen, blah, blah, blah. It's not really the point. We don't need to focus in on September 24th, the WEF agenda is going to get launched and we're all going to get fucking barcodes stamped on our foreheads and computer chips jammed into our asses. And we're going to be tracked everywhere. Like we don't need to focus on the date so much. What we need to focus on, in my belief, this is my opinion, by the way, what we need to focus on right now in the world is us being more self-reliant human beings, improving our life one step at a time, 1% at a time, whatever that looks like for you, becoming more independent in how you act in your life. And then these dates, they don't matter. Ultimate goal in my life is that if the collapse happens, the Great Reset is here, whatever it is, that maybe somebody rocks up to my piece of land and they're like, hey, do you know that Bitcoin just hit $2 or $100 million, or the stock market is gone, it's dead, or like they're setting Wall Street on fire, or like people are collapsing. I'll go, okay. And then I go back out into my garden and continue doing what I'm doing. Or I pick up my bow and continue going out for the hunt that I was going for. That's the ultimate goal for me, is to get to a point in my life where such catastrophic news would be met with a, that's bad for people. I hope they fare well, because I'm sorted. I've got my shit sorted. I've got my family shit sorted. I've got my community here sorted. That's the kind of like goal, I guess, that I would want people to reach for. Not running around, oh, there's bats in my hair style. The sky is falling, but for us to step forward, not with fear, but with confidence that we can do something about whatever comes our way. Anyway, moving on. Argentina central bank hikes benchmark interest rate by 550 basis points. Damn, that's up to 75%. So if you're complaining about your interest rate at the moment being at like what are we at now? 2.5%, 5%, somewhere around there, which is low in my lifetime. Yeah, Argentina's at 75%. So that's how bad it can get and might possibly get. Funny Frog Gaming says, agreed. We just need to keep doing things to improve our own preparedness consistently and not be reactionary. That's the goal. Let us all move forward with confidence in here and being like, okay, take a breath. We might be in the collapse right now. There's still food in my local supermarket. I still have time to do something. Tires burn as gas price hike sparks protests in Haiti. Damn. Railroads and unions reach tentative agreement to avert the rail strike. Good news. Good news. The looming rail strike, which could have really caused quite the embuggerance within the US of A, has been avoided for now. Good. Let's hope they can reach some sort of agreement there and continue on. The agreements are somewhere in the range of a 24% wage increase by 2024. Wow. 24% wage increase. Damn. Peter Rouse says, get out there and get on top of your physical preparations. Yes, do it. Do it now. Do it now. In all senses. Preparation, remember, starts here. We start here in our mind. We move to here with our own physical body, with how we can actually act and do things in the world. And then we start doing the physical preparation things. We lay the foundation. We do whatever we can. If that means buying 2 cans of beans this week instead of 1, we do that. If that means tearing up our entire lawn and building a 1/4-acre garden / homestead farm, we do that. Whatever it looks like to you, we do it. Whatever you can do today, we do it. Chris Fleming says, back to the garden. I can't get through a SitRep, man, without talking about gardening. You know that. I'm all about the gardening. Magnitude 4.4 earthquake struck Northern California, prompting fire officials to investigate reported gas leaks, odor of gas, fire alarms going off, and stuck elevators. So something to think about too, especially if you live in somewhere that is on a fault line. Looking at you, New Zealand. Looking at you guys. Definitely always something to prepare for, that natural disasters don't just include fires and floods. There are also things like the earth moving, which it does. You may have noticed a trend that I like to put out things like, obviously fires and floods I always talk about, because I believe these sort of weather effects are going to increase, but I also don't ignore earthquakes, because they're a natural disaster that you need to plan for as well. I don't ignore volcanic eruptions or anything like that. And just as a thought, like, those who like to just say everything that's happening is man-made and it's climate change and it's everything, all climate change, like, I don't know how much climate change actually affects earthquakes, just FYI. Don't know if it is. Maybe it is, but I don't know if it is. All right. Peter Rouse says, yes, most people are clueless about the required physical preparations needed. I put it like this, and I was teaching someone yesterday. I went down to Melbourne to teach, kind of a preparedness course for someone. And I said, look, when we're talking about preparedness or emergency planning and things like that, you do it around what you can do. So we were talking like, okay, if there was an active shooter event here and I had to go through this door, where could I get? And this person looked out there and they said, well, you could probably run out there, but there's a 10-foot high fence that fences in that area. So I'd be stuck because I can't get through there. And I said, it's a good point. We prepare for whatever our ability is. So my ability will give me X options. And that's what physical preparedness is all about to me, is giving yourself more options. So it's like, oh yeah, well, I wouldn't do this in this occasion. I couldn't run here. I couldn't sprint there, because you don't have the option. Well, you've got the time and the space and the access to recovery options and to good nutrition and to rest and all this sort of stuff right now to physically prepare yourself in the best way that you can. And it kind of behooves you to do so, because it will give you more options in an emergency. There are more things that you can do, and more options means more survivability at the end of the day. So these are the sorts of things that you should be, sort of thinking about. Yes, beans, bullets, and band-aids. I know it's all sexy. All that stuff is all sexy. Building the wickedest grab bag that you could ever build is sexy as. But preparing yourself mentally, reading the literature, understanding what survival is actually about, preparing yourself mentally, putting yourself in those situations and knowing that that is an option then that could happen in your life. And so you're going to be more prepared than the average human being to deal with it. Physically preparing. These are the things too that you should be really, really focusing on. Everyone should learn jiu-jitsu. I agree that everyone should learn a form of self-defense. Learn how to defend yourself. Jiu-jitsu is cool, but I won't restrict it to jiu-jitsu. I think there's a number of very good systems out there, self-defense systems that you should learn. If you're fighting on the ground, then you're in the wrong fight. Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you're fighting, you're in the wrong fight. That's my take on it. My number one rule is, best way to win a fight, no be there, Daniel-san. Avoid fights as best as possible. But if you're going to be in one, then you should learn. I mean, if you get caught in one, you should learn how to do some sort of fighting. Jiu-jitsu is definitely a good system, and people love it. Can you run over fire bag, please? From Chris Fleming. Can you explain that comment? Do you want me to pull apart what I've got in like my fire bag, like a emergency grab bag for fire, or my firefighting bag? Let me know what you mean with that, Chris. But certainly, I would love to do that if you want to see that. All right, I'm going to wrap it up today. Just quickly, emergency. I don't know what you mean, Chris. Shelley Hardenbrook says, I live in a high fire risk area. So do I. Welcome. A flood zone. City didn't put in a proper culvert. Near a fault line, 3 hours from Yellowstone supervolcano, and the house sits in between 2 natural gas lines. Should I move? Up to you, really. Look, I do look at sort of things like this, and I go, where are the safer places that I can live, or where are the things that I can deal with? Now, should you move from a super volcano? Here's an interesting choice that I'm going to give you. Should I move away from a super volcano? Where could you move that's going to be safer? Where could you move in continental USA that's going to be safer if Yellowstone went up? I would suggest there may not be that many safe places, because there will be an effect, a pretty dramatic effect all across that area. But I would be thinking about predominant winds and explosive patterns of super volcanoes. But everywhere in the world is going to be affected if a super volcano goes up, maybe dramatically. So maybe I'm even thinking like, well, if a super volcano goes up, I might as well be on top of that thing, and then it's I don't have to worry about the aftermath at least. Possibly. So I have for a long time now, for about 10 years, looked at weather patterns, looked at climates and how they are shifting and changing within Australia, and things like fire zones, things like flood zones, things like arable land within Australia. And I've landed roughly in the kind of area that I am in at the moment. And I think with the shift that we see happening at the moment, that I think it will probably be maybe more beneficial, although we will see more impact as in more fires in my area, certainly. But that's something I'm willing to deal with and will be preparing for. So it's just that. Think about, are you willing to deal with it? Are you prepared for that? You know, can I do something about it? And am I willing to move? Because there's preparedness. Here's a little tidbit that I want to throw out today as well. Have a plan to stay, have a plan to go. They're two of the main things you want to focus on. Can I stay if I need to? Can I move? Be mobile as well. I'll have the ability to go mobile. But I have room for a garden, lol. Yes, agree about the volcano. We can, humans are adaptable. We can live anywhere, and we can do a lot of things, and we can come back from being almost wiped out. So sometimes, here's where I think my own personal philosophy. I like to put myself in slightly harder places to live. I think as human beings, we need something to push against. That's evolution. That's evolution, right? There's a force, an evolutionary force that we must push against in order to overcome and have growth. So I like to put myself in slightly harder places. Not necessarily the best, easiest, safest place, but that's me. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there for everyone. I hope you're all well. If you have the ability to get out there and garden, like I said, I'm about to go out for a bit of a bow hunt, or a stalk at least. Haven't been out for a while, so it should be fun. For some feral goats. See what I see. Stay safe as always. If you have any questions, send them through to me. I'm really loving the comments from everyone, by the way. Really appreciate it. I don't always answer them, but know that I do read them and go, oh, thank you. That's a really interesting sort of thing. Even if you're like, hey, I don't agree with you with this thing, and you're wrong because of this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, cool. Excellent. Super interesting. Thank you. And if you've got preps going on, a few people have sent me, some stuff that they've got going on with preps, and I love to see that sort of stuff. But apart from that, I'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much. Have a great day, S. Wood, as well. Thank you, guys. Thanks. Appreciate it. And until next time, gang, Semper Paratus.